Hi everyone, how are you doing? For the last few weeks I've been talking mostly about autism because that's what people have been requesting. I got a message a couple of weeks back asking if I could please film a reaction to the movie Rain Man, and I thought that could be fun. Now when I do reaction videos I try to do them blind, but I have seen Rain Man a couple of times, so this will not be a blind reaction. However, it has been a while since I last watched it, and as far as I remember, I haven't watched it in the time since George was diagnosed with autism. So I am watching this for the first time through an autism lens. Quick disclaimer, the story of Rain Man was inspired by a man named Kim Peek, who was not in fact autistic. Kim had a condition called agenesis of the corpus callosum, where the bundle of nerve tissue connecting the hemispheres of the brain is fully or partially missing. A lot of the symptoms are similar to those of autism, and the character in Rain Man was presented as autistic. The movie drove a lot of stereotypes about autism that endure to this day, so it is worth looking at. Now this video is going to contain a lot of spoilers to the movie, so if you haven't seen Rain Man and you're wanting to, maybe watch the movie first and then come back and watch this video. Let's get into it.
The car on Saturday, never drive on Monday.
What is this? Who is this guy?
I don't know, he jumped into the car.
Yeah, we can jump out.
I'm an excellent driver.
Yeah, that's good. Come on, come on. Why'd you let him get in this car? This is not a toy.
He says he drives this car.
Dad lets me drive slow on the driveway every Saturday. Of course, the seats were originally brown leather. Now they're pitiful red.
You know, these seats were brown leather. You know this car?
I know this car. Dad lets me drive slow on the driveway, but not on Monday. Definitely not on Monday.
Who's your dad?
Sanford Babbitt.
Who? Sanford Babbitt?
10961 Beachcrest Street, Cincinnati, Ohio.
That's my address. I mean, what is it with this guy? Hey, who's your mother?
Eleanor Babbitt.
Eleanor?
Died January 5th, 1965 after a short
Who the
sudden
hell are you?
illness. Uh-oh.
Huh? Hold, wait a second. Where are you going?
13 minutes to Judge Wapner, the
Wapner?
People's Court.
Hold it, wait a second here. I want to ask you a question.
But you're a witness signature real. Participants are not
Hey, I'm
actors or
talking to
actual
you.
litigants with the case pending California
Bruner,
Court.
who is this guy?
Raymond is your brother.
This movie was made a long time ago, in the 80s, late 80s. I want to say it was 88, 89, 90, somewhere around there. I know I was a university student. I know some of you watching weren't even born at the time, which makes me feel really old. So if you are not familiar with the story of Rain Man and you don't feel like watching the movie, I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of what has happened up to this point in the story. Charlie Babbitt is introduced to us as an arrogant, entitled, selfish person. He gets a phone call that his father has died. And so he flies across the country to attend the funeral and find out what's happening with the will. Now, his relationship with his father was troubled. They hadn't spoken in a long time. And when the will is read, Charlie discovers that he has inherited this car that he's driving, along with a collection of some kind of prize-winning roses. And the bulk of the estate, in the amount of about $3 million, has gone into trust for this beneficiary who has turned out to be Raymond. Now, Charlie does not know about Raymond's existence. It is at this moment that he learns that he has a brother. Can you imagine how shocking that moment must be if you have gone through your entire life not having any awareness of a sibling, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, this person who's inherited $3 million is your brother that you didn't know about. That would send a lot of conflicting emotions going through your head. It also must be said that when the will was read to Charlie, he was not happy about losing out on the $3 million. He feels that that money is rightfully his, that he is entitled to it. So that motivation drives a lot of what happens in the earlier stages of this movie.
What, is he crazy?
No,
Is he retarded?
not exactly.
Well, he's not crazy, he's not retarded, but he's here.
Well, he's an autistic savant.
I don't know what that means.
Well, some people like him used to be called idiot savants. They have certain deficiencies, certain abilities.
Yeah, but he's retarded.
Autistic, actually high functioning.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that there's a disability that impairs the sensory input and how it's processed.
English here, you're talking over my head.
Well, Raymond has a problem communicating and learning. He can't even express himself or probably even understand his own emotions in a traditional way.
So this doctor gives a reasonable explanation of what autism is, especially considering the understanding of autism that we had at the time this movie was made more than 30 years ago. So he talks about the sensory processing disabilities. He talks about the communication and language impairments. He talks about the fact that a lot of autistic people don't understand and process emotions in the way that other people do. So he does hit a lot of the points that we see in a lot of autistic people. We do know a lot more about autism than we did back then. But yeah, considering this was in the 80s, I think this doctor does a pretty good job of explaining it all.
Fellow's names, yes. Then who's playing first? Yes. I mean the fellow's name on first base. Who? The fellow playing first base for St. Louis. Who? What are you asking me for?
What is this? Why is he doing that?
Who's on first?
Whenever he gets nervous, he does who's on first. You know, from Abbott and Costello?
Yeah, why?
Why? It's his way of dealing with you touching things. His books and stuff.
First.
So he memorized who's on first.
First, yes.
Yeah, that among other things.
So Raymond has memorized this routine from a comedy skit, and he repeats it to himself when he's in a state of anxiety. This is a form of stimming. Stimming is something that a lot of autistic people do. Self-stimulation, it's self-soothing, comforting. In a lot of autistic people, it'll take the form of a physical action like flapping their hands, or, George likes to jump up and down repeatedly. For other people, it might be, ritualistically counting to a certain number. And in Raymond's case, he has this routine memorized and he repeats it to himself because it comforts him, it soothes him, it's a way of helping him cope. There's also this idea that Raymond does not like his things to be touched and moved around. That is a very common characteristic of autism. Everything has to be in its place, and if it is moved, then it can create a lot of anxiety.
Vern, VER, and of course, these people are going to be here all day, Vern.
And there you can see the anxiety immediately ramping up when Charlie takes the book off the bookshelf.
This is an unannounced visit, Vern. This is definitely not a weekend visit, Vern.
He's getting anxious. It's okay, Ray.
Vern. VER. This is an unannounced visit, Vern.
There's also this anxiety about the unannounced visit. People belong in certain places at certain times, and if they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, then you see that anxiety again. I used to see this with George when he was little. He's always gone to school on the school bus. And when he was young, really young, like in kindergarten, he would go to school on the school bus, and I would only drive him if the school bus didn't show up or if he had a dentist appointment or something like that. But even when I drove him to school, I would drop him off, I'd hand him off to a teacher in front of the building, and he would go in. If he saw me in his classroom, he would absolutely flip out because I did not belong there. It was not the right place for me to be. He's not quite as rigid about people and places as he was back then, but back in the day it was hard. So what Raymond is exhibiting here reminds me very much of those days.
You read Hamlet?
I don't know, Vern.
You read The Twelfth Night?
Stop it.
Yes.
Yes.
You read all these stories that are in this book, and you don't know if you read the book.
I don't know, VERN.
You don't know.
Maybe you better put it back.
I gotta say, Charlie is not coming across as a nice guy right here. We are not supposed to like Charlie at this point. He's being set up for a growth story. He starts off as a bit of a jerk. By the end of the story, we may not love him, but I think we'll have a better understanding of him.
Listen, our father died. You know that he died last week? Did they tell you that?
I don't know.
You don't know if they told you, or you don't know what dead is?
The subject of death is really difficult when it comes to people who are on the severe end of the autism spectrum. Death is such an abstract concept. It is hard to explain it to someone who does not know what it is. Most of us intuitively know what death is and what it means, but it can be hard to explain it to somebody who is cognitively impaired. I have been having these conversations with George recently. He has never lost a person who is very close to him, but my mom had this dog who George was very attached to. He absolutely loved her. And the dog died earlier this year. She was old and sick. And so I figured that this would be a good opportunity to have this conversation with George. It's been going okay. I think he is starting to grasp it. He is raising the subject a lot. And I think he is understanding on some level what it means. It's a process, though. It's not one of these things that, okay, this is the concept, you explain it, and boom, you're done. Everything is clearly understood. There is a process that has to go on inside the mind of the person who you're talking to about these things. I included this clip because a couple of people have asked me, referring to this clip, do autistic people actually walk this way? That is not typical for an autistic person, but it's also not typical, if that makes any sense. A lot of people who are on the spectrum have motor skills deficits. So either their gross motor skills or their fine motor skills can be impacted. That can affect muscle tone, it can affect how you move. And yes, it can result in movements being a little bit stilted or unconventional. So, yeah, is it typical? No. Is it atypical? No, it just is what it is. Autism presents differently in everybody.
Not.
Yes, but we can watch TV here. We're
Yeah.
allowed.
Yeah. Wheel of Fortune. Look at this studio filled with glamorous merchandise. Fabulous and exciting bonus prizes.
So Charlie has now kidnapped, that may be a strong word. He has taken Raymond on this road trip. Raymond did agree to the trip. He went voluntarily, but with Raymond's cognitive impairments, we don't know if Raymond actually has the capacity to consent to something like that. He took Raymond without the permission of the people who run the facility. So now they're in this hotel, and Raymond is now sitting with Charlie's girlfriend, who, it must be said, is treating him with a great deal of kindness and patience and respect. It's really nice to see.
Here, Ray.
Yeah.
Take this, and food is coming
Yeah.
shortly.
Yeah.
And I'll be right back.
Yeah. Of course, I'm going to be here for a long time, a very long time. I'm gone for good. I'm gone for good from my home.
So he's saying he's gone for good from his home. He has been at this facility for so long that he doesn't really know anything else. And he has been taken away from his home by a complete stranger. That must be scary for him. And a lot of autistic people don't really understand the concept of time. So, you can tell him that, this is just for a day or 2 days or a week. For a lot of people, that just doesn't mean anything. It's, once they're gone and they don't understand what's happening and they're in an unfamiliar place with unfamiliar people, it can seem like forever.
Sally Tibbs, Sally. 461-0192.
How did you know my phone number?
How'd you know that?
You said read the telephone book last night. Tibbs, Sally. 461-0192.
He remembers things, little.
Can you imagine you are a waitress in a restaurant and your customer takes one look at your name and knows your phone number? That must be freaky. If I'm that woman, I am a little scared, gotta be said. But it turns out that Raymond was just memorizing the phone book. He didn't have any books with him. I didn't show this clip, but in the hotel room, Raymond was anxious about not having his books with him. And Charlie just kind of tossed him the phone book and said, here, read this. And Raymond did.
You memorize the whole book?
No.
You start from the beginning?
Yeah.
How far did you get?
G.
G?
G. God's sake. William Marshall. God's sake.
You memorized to G.
Yeah, G.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
G. Half a G.
And that straightening up of things, the salt and pepper and sugar, that's pretty typical as well. A lot of autistic people do like to line things up. You'll see a lot of autistic kids will line up toy trains and cars instead of actually playing with them. They'll just line them up in a row. That's what they like to do.
I don't have my maple syrup either. I'm going to be without my maple syrup and my toothpicks.
You don't see any pancakes, do you, Ray?
Of course, yeah, promise maple syrup is not here.
Ray, when we order the pancakes, they're going to bring the maple syrup.
Maple syrup is supposed to be on the table before the pancakes.
We haven't ordered yet, Ray.
Of course, when they bring the maple syrup after the pancakes, it'll definitely be too late.
How is that going to be too late, huh, Ray? We haven't ordered the pancakes yet. How is that going to be
We're going to be here the entire morning with no maple syrup
Right.
and no toothpicks. I'm definitely not
Right.
gonna have my pancakes with
Right.
ow
Don't make a scene.
ow.
Well, that's not Charlie's finest moment. We see Raymond's anxiety ramping up because things are not the way he's used to them being. Autistic people are great for schedules and routines and things kind of being the same. And it can be a problem. It can be very limiting because, you know, that's not the way life works. Sometimes things are different and we have to just do what we can to adapt to them. And that is really hard for people on the spectrum. It's really hard to make those adjustments. Charlie, of course, doesn't understand that. You know, he's only just found out he has a brother. He has never known anything about autism. And, you know, okay, so Charlie did put himself into this situation by taking Raymond with him without anyone's permission. But, you know, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what this is all about. He doesn't know how to handle this. So he is trying to communicate with Raymond in the way he would communicate with a typical person. And you cannot do that. You have to learn how to communicate with people who are on the spectrum. Definitely grabbing them by the neck and cursing at them and calling them names is probably not the way to go. This is Kirsten from the future. Hi. The final edit of this video turned out to be longer than I thought it would. I've already cut a lot of what I filmed and I don't want to cut more because this movie does allow for some good discussion points when it comes to autism. So I'm going to end this video here, but you can catch the rest of it in part 2 next week and in part 3 the week after. If you're not subscribed, hit that button and click the notification bell. That way you will not miss the rest of this 3-part series. So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, live your best life and be kind. Bye.